The joy of being a mother is one of a kind experience a woman gets with the news of her pregnancy. The concept of blood is thicker than water is very much prevalent in our society. Pregnancy and the problems related to it are at the center of the female mortality and birth rate of our country. Thus, to regulate the problems arising out of pregnancy, certain acts were enforced. The Pre-Natal and Pre-Diagnostic Techniques Act and the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Acts are the significant laws to include within its ambit various practices and malpractices with respect to pregnancy. We as a nation thrive in the celebration of our differences, as well the appreciation for our similarities. Yet, the greatest divide of our country is associated to the systematic killing of a girl child even before she is brought into this world. To curb the menace of such systematic female feticide by way of unethical and unsafe practices, the Pre-Natal and Pre-Diagnostic Techniques Act was introduced in the year 1994, which was also amended in the year 2003. Despite of such stringent laws, the 2011 census supports the said claim, as it showed an all-time low of 914 females per 1,000 males. The child sex ratio, 0 to 6 years, is 914 girls per 1,000 boys, an alarming decline from 927 in 2001, and 945 in 1991, and 962 in 1981. The lowest recorded since independence. What is more concerning is the secondary sex ratio example at birth. In India is 893 girls per 1,000 boys, whereas the natural sex ratio at birth is estimated to be 943. The global average is 990 females to 1,000 males. Despite these horrific numbers, fetal sex determination and sex selective abortion by unethical medical professionals has today grown into a rupees 1,000 crore industry, 244 million United States dollars. What is female feticide? Female feticide, as the name suggests, is the process of determining the sex of the fetus when it is in the womb of the mother and aborting it by way of medical surgeries or methods in case the fetus happens to be a female. In simple words, female feticide is putting an end to the life of a girl child even before she takes birth. In this world, the sex of the baby can be detected in a mid-pregnancy ultrasound between the 16th and 20th week of the pregnancy, the very practice of which is deemed illegal by the regulations of the PN-PDCT Act. Patriarchy, gender inequality. A male is the supreme authority of the house, while female is the male-bearing machine. Females are considered as a liability and not an asset. Malpractice of dowry. Physical, mental, moral, and sexual safety of female at risk. Illiteracy. Industrialization of health sector, paving way for malpractices. The main motive is to protect the rights of an unborn female child by putting a check on it, and PC-PNDT Act was thus enacted to ban the prenatal diagnostic techniques to be used for sex determination of the fetus, leading to female feticide. The imbalance of the female to male ratio, as also indicated by the 2011 census, can also be seen in the phenomena where in overpopulation of men led to there being no girls left in existence to marry in the first place. An uneven power dynamic comes into existence where the male dominance prevails over a woman. The idea that only a man can go out and be the breadwinner of the house, as opposed to the woman to only take care of the house, children, and obey the husband, or the men in general, led to even the women being party to female feticide to appeal the general norm set in the society. The clinics were advertised with slogans like 500 today or 50,000 tomorrow, suggesting that the cost of aborting a girl child today is way cheaper than having to bear her expenses in the future, only to pay more towards the dowry. Human trafficking is also a major concern arising from female feticide, as the unavailability of women in part of the country is fulfilled by girls being trafficked to be sold for marriage. In other parts of the country, or even internationally, the abortions carried out after the sex determination of the fetus is more than often unsafe and performed by untrained individuals, which blatantly violates the guidelines set by the medical agencies to a great margin. This, therefore, leads to the death of the mother undergoing the abortion, infections, and spreading of diseases associated to it. Meaning of prenatal and pre-diagnostic techniques. The techniques and the process which enable the detection and diagnosis of the physical and mental condition of a fetus in the womb of the mother are called the prenatal and pre-diagnostic techniques. Prenatal means before birth. The techniques and process involved are the study of fluid in the womb, blood cells or tissue from a pregnant woman or the fetus, which can also be done through a visual image, example ultrasonography. Preconception and Pre-Natal Diagnostic Techniques Act, PC-PNDT Act, in order to abolish and better practices with respect to the sex determination and female feticide, keeping in view the widespread effects it has had over the years in our country. The PN-PDCT Act was enacted, where Maharashtra was the pioneering state to introduce the Maharashtra Regulation of Use of PNDT Act in 1987, after which on 20 September 1994 the PC-PNDT Act was enacted, with further amendments made in 2003. The purpose of this act is to prevent the use of prenatal diagnostic techniques for sex-determined abortions, prohibit the techniques used for sex determination before and after conception and sex selection, provide for stringent punishments in case of violation and offenses committed out of it. The key elements of the Act are genetic abnormalities, chromosomal abnormalities, particular congenital malformations, hemoglobinopathies, metabolic disorders, sex-related disorders, any other abnormalities. The key elements of the Act are: the Act imposes restrictions on any genetic counseling center, laboratory, clinic, specialists, team of specialists to conduct any tests to determine the sex of the fetus. Such authorities as laboratory, clinic, specialist, or their team of specialists shall not convey the sex of the fetus in any way, shape, or form, written, verbal, to the concerned couple, relatives, friends, family. No person associated to the pregnant woman is to influence, coerce, pressurize, encourage to use the prenatal and pre-diagnostic techniques for sex determination. No person, specialist, team of specialists, etc. associated to the field of infertility shall aid, participate, or himself conduct the process of sex selection on a woman, man, or both. Prenatal and pre-diagnostic techniques are to be only carried out if the qualified personnel are satisfied with the circumstances as enumerated below. The pregnant woman is above 35 years of age. Family history associated with mental retardation, physical deformities, or any such abnormalities. History of 2 or more miscarriages. Any other condition, as advised by the Central Supervisory Board. The pregnant woman has been exposed to certain drugs, radiation, infection, or chemicals. The key elements of the Act are: the Act also bans on the sale of ultrasound machines and technology associated to the same to unregistered clinics, laboratories, concerned professionals. Under the Act, no advertisement is to be endorsed with respect to the prenatal and pre-diagnostics techniques used for sex determination in any way, shape, or form, verbal, written, etc. Prerequisites under the Act, wherein the use of prenatal and pre-diagnostic techniques are to be made. The concerned woman is to be made aware of all possible side effects associated with the procedures, and thusly obtain a formally written consent from the concerned woman. The laboratories, clinics, genetic counseling centers, etc. are to be registered in accordance with the provisions of the Act in order to conduct any activities associated with it, the validity of which shall be 5 years from the date of its issue. The application for renewal shall be made 30 days prior to the date of expiry to the appropriate authority. The records of such forms, charts, consent letters, reports, and all other documents are to be maintained thoroughly and must be available for inspection by the concerned authorities. The certificate of registration of such laboratories, clinics, genetic counseling centers is to be displayed in clear view in the concerned clinics, centers, or laboratories, etc. A prominent notice is also to be put up in such centers, clinics, and labs that sex determination of fetus is strictly prohibited under the law. The employment of only qualified persons is to be done in such laboratories. clinics, genetic counseling centers, etc. associated with the performance of the prenatal and pre-diagnostic techniques, the place, method, and personnel associated to the conduct of any activity of the prenatal and pre-diagnostic techniques is to be in accordance of the Act. Uses of PN-PDCT techniques. The prenatal and pre-diagnostic techniques are to be used and conducted only in the interest of the woman carrying the fetus, in order to avoid any underlying problems which would further enable the medical machinery to be ready for the treatment required to tackle the problems, and also gives knowledge to the parents to be about the health and condition of the fetus in order to determine the continuation of the said pregnancy. By conducting studies under these techniques, various disorders can be detected in an early stage of pregnancy, which enables the due care and treatment to be given for the same. Through this systematic study, certain inheritance patterns can also be traced based on the disorders detected to further guide as well as make the concerned people aware of the prevalent condition. Genetic disorders like the Down syndrome, blood disorders like thalassemia, muscular diseases, metabolic diseases, etc. can be detected. The analysis of underlying risks, medical consequences, and effects can be done with the use of these techniques. Who can conduct the PN-PDCT techniques? Medical geneticist, a person with a degree or diploma in genetic science, a person with a postgraduate degree in biological science, or with an experience of not less than 2 years in such field. After obtaining any one of the medical qualifications as recognized under the Indian Medical Council Act. Gynecologist, a person with a postgraduate degree in gynecology and obstetrics. Pediatrician, a person with a postgraduate degree in pediatrics. Sonologist, or radiologist, or imaging specialist, a person having any one of the qualifications as recognized under the Indian Medical Council, or a person having a postgraduate qualification in ultrasonography, or imaging techniques, or radiology. Where are the tests to be conducted? Genetic counseling center, an institute, hospital, nursing home, or any place, by whatever name called, that provides genetic counseling to patients. Generic clinic, a clinic, institute, hospital, nursing home, or any place, by whatever name called, used for conducting prenatal diagnostic procedures. Genetic laboratory, a laboratory, inclusive of a place where facilities are provided for conducting analysis or tests of samples received from genetic clinic for prenatal diagnostic test. Authorities established under the Act. Central Supervisory Board, CSB, State or Union Territory Supervisory Board, SSB, or UTSB, Advisory Committee, and appropriate authorities at 3 levels: state, district, sub-district. Offenses. The offenses under this Act are cognizable. Arrest can be made without a warrant, non-compoundable. The cases arising out of the violation of the provisions of this Act cannot be settled outside of the court. Non-bailable. Bail is not a matter of right. Thus, bail is granted at the discretion of the court. Conducting or aiding to conduct the process of prenatal and pre-diagnostic techniques for sex determination. Conducting or aiding to conduct the process of prenatal and pre-diagnostic techniques in unregistered clinics, centers, laboratories, etc. Sex selection on a man or woman in the field of infertility. Sale, distribution, supply, rental, etc. of any machinery facilitating in prenatal and pre-diagnostic capable of determining the sex of the fetus. Advertisement of prenatal techniques to be used for sex determination in any way, shape, or form. Punishment. On a subsequent conviction, the sentence of imprisonment can extend up to 10 years, and the fine can be increased to 50,000 rupees. Any person associated to the conduct of the prenatal and pre-diagnostic techniques for the purpose of sex determination or sex selection and endorsing sex determination via advertisement is punishable with a sentence extending to 3 years with a fine of 10,000 rupees. The name of the medical practitioner engaged in such activities shall be reported to the State Medical Council by the AA for requisite actions to be taken and removal of the name of such medical practitioner from the register of the Council for a period of 5 years. For the first offense, an permanently for repeat offense. How can a complaint be lodged? A formal written complaint can be lodged with the appropriate authority. A. The appropriate authority, on acknowledging the receipt of the complaint, takes action within 15 days of the complaint lodged. Action taken. The AA probes an investigation into the matter. The concerned premise is searched and examined for records, register, documents, etc. Anything that can be used as evidence shall be seized, and such units be sealed. If the AA is convinced that it is done in public interest, then the registration of the person may be suspended without issuing notice, after which a proper case is filed in the court of law. In case no action by the AA is taken within 15 days of lodging the complaint, the complainant can then directly approach the court with the acknowledgement receipt. The complainant can also approach NGO working towards combating problems related to women. How the provisions of the PN-PDCT Act are eluded, even with the express provision under the Act prohibiting the conveyance of the sex of the fetus to the parents or any person concerned in the case. Indirect ways of communication are employed. For example, saying, "You should buy pink clothes if it's a girl," and "You should buy blue clothes if it's a boy." Barfi and padha, traditional Indian sweets, are used as metaphors to communicate whether the gender of the fetus is male or female. Unwanted or unplanned pregnancy. To a couple trying to conceive a baby since a long time, the news of pregnancy comes as a welcome surprise, a blessing even in an adverse case. However, where the pregnancy is unplanned or unwanted, the blessing comes in the form of a bane to many. The causes of unplanned pregnancy can be the maintenance of a healthy reproductive system is not promoted due to lack of awareness, as it's been regarded as a taboo for so many years. Thus, in such cases, the mistakes like not calculating the proper safe days for intercourse after a menstrual cycle, not keeping track of menstrual cycle, etc., owe to the unwanted pregnancy. The lack of awareness and promotion about contraceptives like male and female condoms, IUDs, oral contraceptives, like birth control medicines, is also one of the major contributory factor towards unplanned and unwanted pregnancy. Irregularity in using the necessary contraceptives, like diaphragm, condoms, cervical caps, also contributes towards the same. For example, such contraceptives are to be used properly at the time of intercourse and not to be skipped or avoided. Wrong use of contraceptives is also a major concern. The instructions given on the packets of each contraceptive are to be followed thoroughly. Alternatively, in the case of ingestion of birth control pills, doctor's instructions should be followed carefully as to when and how much of the tablets or pills are to ingested. Failure of the contraceptive to do its work is also one of the cause of unwanted or unplanned pregnancy. Sexual offenses like rape or even forceful intercourse in marital life also amounts to unwanted pregnancy and renders a deep physical and mental trauma on the victim as well. The Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. The Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971 provides for the provisions to be followed to carry out the termination of pregnancy by the licensed medical practitioner. The licensed medical practitioner is to carry out the termination of pregnancy abiding the provisions under this Act. The Act provides for the termination of pregnancy to be carried out under the following circumstances: in cases where the diagnosis of the pregnant woman and the fetus in the womb reveals that the pregnancy is a result of the failure of preventive measures taken to avoid pregnancy, the continuance of pregnancy shall be a risk to the life of the woman carrying the fetus, or a grave injury to the mental or physical health to the woman. In cases where the woman carrying fetus is under the age of 18 and is mentally ill, shall require a written consent from the guardian. The continuance of pregnancy shall render a substantial risk to the life and well-being if the child is born, and as such would suffer from physical or mental abnormalities, also leading to a serious handicap. The pregnancy is thus terminated with the consent of the woman, provided she is of the age of majority and of not mentally ill. The pregnancy is a result of the offense of rape inflicted on the woman. Thus, depending on the above mentioned circumstances, the termination of a Pregnancy can be conducted where the duration of pregnancy exceeds 12 weeks but does not exceed 20 weeks.